Greetings, family, and welcome to another edition of KSOL Black Talk Radio, the new black media. Today is Saturday, January 5th, 2019. Family, an officer is charged in the death of a man who he says he knew 100% that this black man was going to fatally shoot him or possibly others. The man's name was Daniel Hambrick. He was 25 years old. He was a black man. He was fatally shot by this officer by the name of Andrew Delke. Prosecutors played the state investigator's interview with Andrew Delke, 25, in a Nashville courtroom on Friday, where dozens of police officers packed in to support Delke. The officer sat across from rows of family members and others there to advocate for Daniel Hambrick, the 25-year-old black man who died in the shooting as he ran away from Delke and held a pistol. You see, the way this police officer, Andrew Delke, has testified so far, he's saying that Daniel Hambrick not only had a gun, but as he was running away, basically sprinting, running away, that he had time to turn around, look at Andrew Delke, and point his gun at him, when the video surveillance footage never shows that. This is a clear example of exactly what I read about from our great and late Johnnie Cochran, one of America's top lawyers who mysteriously died, by the way. He stated in his book, A Journey to Justice, that I read, that police officers often lie on the stand. And they have a term for it. It's called testifying. This so-called police officer, Andrew Delke, and I hate to even say his name, it comes off of my tongue in a very bad way. This so-called police officer claims that Daniel Hambrick, not only was he running away, but since he didn't answer to any of his commands, that Andrew Delke, from what he says, from what a retired sergeant says, and what other people in law enforcement that support him say, is that their training, supports his action. In other words, their training says that if you are running away from them, whether your gun is real, plastic, otherwise, they can shoot you in the back and kill you. Well, why do I say that? Because, in fact, that's exactly what happened in this case, where this Delke person decided that as Daniel Hambrick, this 25-year-old black man, as he was running away from him, this creature, this so-called police officer who carried a badge and should have been acting way more responsible than what he did, he decides to shoot and kill Daniel Hambrick by shooting him in the back, by shooting him in the torso, by shooting him in the head, and a fourth bullet that happened to miss him. So, from all the readings of this case, I'm seeing that all the law enforcement officials that have come to Andrew Delke's side to give him support, they all say that their training is that whoever you are, as you run away, they can deem that as a threat and they can shoot and kill you, according to what they say. Now, again, I wish Johnny Cochran was alive and well today, because he would make a mockery of this so-called justice system. They have decided to write their own rules to get away with murder. And that's exactly what's going on here. Because again, as the video footage even shows, this white man, this white boy here, he's lying. He is lying, and other white people in law enforcement are supporting his lies. They're standing there in support of his lies. That's what type of system human beings, that is, people of color with hue, humans, this is what we have to deal with from creatures like this so-called police officer that all the law enforcement officials claim that he acted according to his training. How many times have we gone through all these different unjust killings and stated that they need additional training? We know that that is BS. We know that that's just talking points. We know that white America has been getting away with killing black human beings at will. And you wonder why your karma's so bad. You wonder why your birth rates are so low. You wonder why every time you turn around, you're dealing with fires, destruction, mass shootings, and all kinds of ills in society, because it's the bad karma that you guys are getting back. And there's more to come. There's way more to come. But yet, you have people like Andrew Delke, who is working on a police force, and they claim that they're trained to shoot and kill a person if your back is to them and you're running away, posing absolutely no threat, but they could deem it as such. And so this Andrew Delke sitting here lying to the courts, saying that Daniel Hambrick had time to turn around and look at him. And the retired sergeant I spoke of earlier, I didn't mention his name and I'm not going to, but the retired sergeant who put his 2 cents into this case had the gall to say that he trains police officers that if a suspect happens to look at you, that's a threat. Just because they look at you. I don't know what kind of low IQ frequency these so-called law enforcement officials are on, but it is at the lowest of lows for them to think in the manner that they do. I know children who outsmart these so-called adults. Children who are smarter than them. So the family of Daniel Hambrick, let me speak on the family of this black man who was murdered by this white thug, by this white criminal, posing as a police officer. Let me tell you how they treated the family. The family is outraged because the courts and the court officials treated the family with the utmost disrespect. They allowed all the police officers inside the courtroom, but didn't allow many of the family members or supporters in the courtroom. They were outside. This is how they treated the victim's family because they're black. So you had some police officers in there giving support to this thug when they had no business even being in there, when there's a victim and families of the victim who want to seek justice. But you got some police officers up in the courtroom taking up space that don't even belong there. And so the family of the victim, Daniel Hambrick, this black man, they can't even get fair justice from a so-called justice system. So-called justice system. And so they were offended greatly by the treatment. And it was a racist treatment, by the way. As a matter of fact, one of the prosecutors or defense attorneys stated that they were treated almost inhumane by the courts on how they treated this victim's family. But yet this white police officer, he has other police officers providing him with support in the courtroom. And the victim's family members can't even make their way into the courts because of the way the racist system treated them. And they get away with this. And so again, I say that when I see hurricanes, when I see fires, when I see devastation going on within the white communities, I feel nothing. I look at it as karma, that you guys are getting exactly what you deserve when you treat others the way that you do. So, I say in the last part of this video, rest in peace, Daniel Hambrick. You didn't deserve to die. You didn't deserve to be murdered and killed by anyone. Lastly, they keep bringing up this excuse about the fact that he had a gun. So family, you know what I did? I looked up the laws for Tennessee. And guess what it showed? Wait, let me show you. It clearly states that a license is required to carry a loaded handgun, either openly or concealed. Tennessee recognizes any valid out-of-state permit for carrying a handgun as long as the permittee is not a resident of Tennessee. And I gotta tell you, family, at the time of this murder from Andrew Delke, this so-called police officer, at the time of the murder of Daniel Hambrick, this 25-year-old black man, this white officer had no idea whether Daniel Hambrick had a license to carry that gun, whether he was legally permitted to. He didn't have no idea whatsoever. The fact that he's a black man exercising his Second Amendment right like any other white person. But the fact that he had a gun, a black man having a gun, when we have a constitutional right, just like anyone else. But law officials, law enforcement, this so-called justice system that is unjust, they kill black men when we have guns, even when it's our constitutional right. And so I say lastly again that this police officer had no idea whether or not Daniel Hambrick had a permit or whether he's permitted to carry that gun. He just assumed, and he went after him and then shot him, hitting him 3 times but shooting at him 4. And he shot him in the back, in the torso, and in the back of the head. I'd say that Andrew Delke murdered Daniel Hambrick. And I hope that a grand jury sees this and takes him to task. That would be justice. And so I use several different sources for this particular video, but I'm not surprised at how white America is. I'm not surprised at how diabolically evil and unjust white people can be. But when I read that during a preliminary hearing that was held on Friday and Saturday, that this creature's defense team said that the officer was, quote, following his training when he saw Daniel Hambrick holding a gun and then shot him in the back during a foot chase. When they sit there and they could say that with a straight face and defend this criminal, this creature, this murderer, white people don't ask how black people, why is it that people don't like you? How can you ask that question? How can you ask such an intelligent question and not already know the answer when your actions are so foul and evil? How is it that you can ask, how is it that people don't like you? I really like what the district attorney Glenn Funk had to say. He compared the defense to an argument, quote, used at Nuremberg when trials were held against Nazi leaders. Funk pushed back at the defense's contention that Delke had to shoot Hambrick as he ran away. Quote, there were a number of other options that were available, Funk said, suggesting that Delke could have stopped, sought cover, and called for additional help, which he didn't do none of that. And that's very true. And lastly, District Attorney Glenn Funk, he says, quote, the bottom line is this, Funk said Saturday in court, quote, any person in Davidson County who shoots someone who is running away from them, shoots them in the back, and kills them needs to be held accountable, unquote. Delke encountered Hambrick in a North Nashville parking lot after an attempted traffic stop nearby. But after Hambrick saw Delke, he ran and the officer followed behind. Surveillance video of the seconds before the shooting shows Hambrick facing forward and running away from Delke, as Delke stops, aims, and then shoots. Hambrick was hit 3 times from behind. Prosecutors included those details in evidence justifying the homicide charge. And that's very, very clear and concise. That video footage shows the truth, despite what this Delke is saying as he testifies. Remember that term, testifying. That's what they do the majority of the time, black folks. This is Jax. Thank you for watching and tuning in to KSOL Black Talk Radio, the new black media. And for Daniel Hambrick's family, I hope and pray that you guys get justice. But based on what we've seen from this serious, unjust system that we have not fixed, we'll see how things turn out. Peace out.